avoiding airspace infringement. Avoiding airspace infringement. So, airspace infringement, particularly around North Weald, which, if you've been following the channel and if you've seen any of my videos, you know my home airfield is North Weald. It's a beautiful, incredible airfield. If you've never been, I would say definitely put it on your list of places, airfields to visit. It's historical, i.e., had something to do with the World War. If you ask me what that exactly is, I do. I do have a video where I went to the museum and it was shut, and I didn't really get to do that. And I haven't been back to the museum since. But it's a nice airfield. There's a nice place to eat. There's always like, really old aircraft. Sometimes Spitfires come through. Yeah, there's some old aircraft kind of hanging around. Yeah, it's a really nice airfield. I'll definitely highly recommend it. Runway is long and huge, very forgiving. I think it's it's about 1,800 meters in length, so very, very forgiving. But very importantly, it is right under Stansted's airspace, which means it's very easy for pilots who are not really paying attention to it, to inadvertently go into controlled airspace, which is basically then airspace infringement. So let's have a look at what the CAA chucked towards me about this. And although this applies to North Weald, I think there's definitely takeaways, right? For anyone operating near controlled airspace, there's definitely takeaways. So hang in there if you don't fly at North Weald, but if you're intending to fly into North Weald or you fly from North Weald, this would be useful to you. And of course, this is a bit of peer study. So hopefully it helps to make it a little bit memorable. And you can always come back to this video if you want to watch it, or of course, read directly from the source. Righty, let's have a look. So here you have it. Let me zoom into that for your viewing pleasure. Date of publication, 24th July. Now, I know they have released something before, but clearly this is updated. So this is Aeronautical Information Circular, right? Pink, so that's to do with safety. Right, airspace infringement prevention in the vicinity of North Weald, right? Now, I'm not going to go through all of it. I had a quick skim read of it, so I'm just going to go to the important part that I want to highlight. But of course, you can always look it up. If you want this, I'll drop it in the chat for your that's in the YouTube chat and that's in the Kick chat. You can have a look for yourself if you want. But I'm going to read the intro and then I'll go to the main parts that I want to pull out that apply to me as well. Right. North Weald is a busy, unlicensed general aviation aerodrome located in North Weald, Bassett, Essex. It serves a wide variety of operators, including emergency services, helicopters, flight training school, jets, and warbirds. And by the way, jets have priority, so sometimes there is a sterile circuit and you have to give way to jets and stuff like that. So just know that. The aerodrome has 2 runways orientated 0220. Okay. The location of North Weald Aerodrome requires operators to have an increased awareness of airspace structures that surrounds it. Each year, there are multiple airspace infringements of the notified airspace that surrounds the aerodrome. With the busy neighboring London Stansted Airport operating runway 0422. Any airspace infringement may have a safety impact to arrivals to and departures from the airport, along with disruptions to the wider airport operations. So it really throws them for a loop because obviously they have to protect commercial passengers. So airspace infringement, they have to maintain certain separations. So yeah, that does alter their operations when that happens, depending on how bad the infringement is, I imagine. I haven't looked into it, don't quote me. Now, this is Northfield, and this is Stansted over here. And usually I depart via Chipping-Ongar to wherever I'm going, or you can also depart via Epping. But there's a little operations area. So let's have a look at that. So that's the bit that's been cut out for people coming from Northfield. And within this space, you've got from surface to 1,500. Above 1,500, based on London QNH, then you're infringing airspace, right? So there's a transponder mandatory zone here. So all of this is a transponder mandatory zone, which means you have to have a transponder and have mode Charlie, which means you're basically also sharing your altitude through the transponder. Now, what did I want to pull out of this? That's the description of the airspace, what's around to the north, to the south, heights, etc. Okay, that's not, yes, Northfield area of operation, which is this part. This is the part I want to read, and transponder operation. Okay, no, that's not the part I wanted to read. Transponder operation. Always ensure that the transponder is operated to the full extent of its capabilities. Flights in UK TMZ or transponder mandatory zone requires that aircraft be equipped with Mode S elementary transponder. The pilot of an aircraft wishes to operate in TMZ without such serviceable transponder equipment may be granted access to the TMZ or transponder mandatory zone subject to ATC approval. Prior to entering the TMZ or leaving, prior to entering the TMZ or leaving, give me a second. Where was I? Prior to entering the TMZ or leaving Northfield airfield area of operation, carry out an additional check of the transponder to ensure that it is selected to mode A and alt mode C. Okay. Here is the important part, and I got shown this when I was doing my checkout to start hiring aircraft. Prior to the flight, ideally before starting taxi, it's a good idea to consider checking the accuracy of the pressure altitude that the transponder is reporting. To do this, set 1013 hectopascals on the altimeter subscale and check that the altitude on the altimeter against the reading on the transponder. Remember to set the correct altimeter setting before starting to taxi. So basically what you need to do is, before you kind of get moving all about, you've started, your altimeter is set to alt. Instead of setting the QNH, set 1013, and that reading should match what the transponder is saying. So if you set 1013 on the altimeter and it's showing you 200, then the transponder should also say 200. Now, if the altimeter says 100 and the transponder says 200, you need to bear that in mind, basically, is what they're saying when you're flying about. That actually your altimeter is saying your transponder is saying 200. Anyways, back to this. Just got a couple more things to pull out, and then we will be done with this. Okay, if any doubt exists as to the serviceability of the aircraft transponder, either obtain an approval as paragraph 3.3 prior to entering the TMZ, when inbound to Northfield Aerodrome, or prior to leaving Northfield area of operation when outbound, or arrive and depart only via the area of operation as depicted there. So I guess like that's just the easiest way to go about it, really, is if you're going here outside of the AOO, sorry, then you need to really think about the transponder and whether it's reporting accurately and all of that, and get permission if you don't have a transponder that's showing altitude or whatever. But if you're within this area of operation, then you're basically fine from surface to 1,500. Now, what else did I want to pull out of this, which is useful to me as well, flying from Northfield? Altimeter operation. Prior to flight, set the relevant QNH prior to commencing taxi, and check again as part of pre-departure checks. Part of that check will incorporate ensuring that the altimeter reads the aerodrome elevation if using QNH. In case of Northfield Aerodrome, the published elevation is 321 feet. If the aircraft altimeter is under reading, take that amount into consideration when with your altitude selection. As part of threat and error management, pilots are advised to maintain adequate separation from notified airspace through the application of the Take 2 guidance. Where able, plan to remain at least 2 nautical miles from the edge or 200 feet below the base of the subject airspace. So 2 nautical miles from the edge, horizontal separation, and 200 feet vertical separation. Take 2 to avoid airspace infringement. The recommended 200 feet vertical distance may need to be increased during flights where turbulence or thermal conditions are encountered, or following periods of skill fade to prevent inadvertent climbs into controlled airspace. So that's really useful, an important thing to remember. Take 2 nautical miles, horizontal separation 200 feet, vertical separation, increase that if you might have skill fade or if it's turbulent, because very quickly I had a bumpy flight. The flight to dance episodes, those were some bumpy flights, and it's so easy, especially if you've got a bit of skill fade. Before you know it, if you are 100 feet, your separation was 100 feet, you could easily end up in controlled airspace. So yeah, that's something to look out for, and that's the guidance. That's the guidance for avoiding airspace infringement. Of course, the circuit height in Northfield is 1,200 on the QNH, so really it's a 300-foot buffer. So you're taking 3 in that situation. But obviously, when you're flying around airspaces, and that's why I said, even though this applies specifically to Northfields, there are takeaways for any controlled airspace wherever you fly around the UK. Take 2, basically. Now, quick look, quick scan. Anything else I want to pull out from this? Of course, use the stance. Oh, yes, this is really important, and something that I will be considering as well for future flights. When operating proximate to controlled airspace, pilots are recommended to be in receipt of air traffic service. However, rather than operating autonomously and squawking 7,000 or 2,000, or being in receipt of basic service from London Information, I've done that before, another radar unit, pilots are strongly encouraged to make use of the relevant frequency monitoring codes. All right. To do this, they should listen out on the appropriate frequency and set out your transponder to the correct listening squawk. In the case of Stansted, the frequency is 120.625. And the squawk is 7013. This information is annotated on the VFR chart at the boundary of the relevant airspace. A squawk code or a squawk does not provide a clearance into controlled airspace and does not imply that an ATC service is being provided, but it will allow ATC to intervene early to help with when an infringement occurs, right? So let's have a look. What does that look like? Let's have a quick look. Shout out to you if you're joining us for the show. Drop a line in the chat so I can shout you out. Let's have a look. I'm going to stop sharing that screen and I'm going to share something else. Can I share this screen offline because you are? Let's see. Can I share it? No, window. Yes. So let's have a look at this. So where is North Weald? North Weald, finding North Weald. Finding North Weald. All right. All of this crazy London airspace, North Weald there. You got the area of operation. Now, last time when I flew north, I actually went out through here, through Epping. I think I went this way. No, I went out through Epping, round this way, round there. And what they're saying is, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Let me bring this to your attention if you haven't. I've got one squawk. All right, let me see. Okay. Stansted, give me just a second. I'm nearly there. Southend. Or okay. Okay, this is not quite what I'm looking for, but I will show it to you. Right. So listening squawks, right? Now, if you don't know what that is, it basically means that you tune into the frequency, but you don't have to communicate with them, right? So, for example, see, the reason why I said I'm not so sure about, okay, see, this is April 2017. That's April 2017. That's not the up-to-date one, but I just want to illustrate the point. Actually, let me see if I can find you in a good time the latest one. I do have them in a document, but it's obviously important to make sure that it's the latest. Future Pilot 901 community, Future Pilot 901 radio telephony, Lars frequency squawk. Okay, so this is a later one. Let me bring that to you. Okay, let me share this with you. Take that out. Actually, we can just share this tab instead. All right, there you have it. Right, so listening squawk, for example, Southend, because I'm around Southend a lot, I'll just put 130.780 and I'll put 5050 on the transponder, which lets them know I'm flying nearby. You don't need to do anything for me, but I'm listening to you just in case. And what they're saying is, if you then infringe airspace or you're inadvertently going to controlled airspace and you don't know, for example, in this case, if I drift into Southend controlled airspace without knowing, they can then speak to me because they can see that I'm squawking 5050, so they know I'm listening. But if I'm, for example, flying around Southend airspace, but I'm getting a basic service from Farnborough radar, then Southend can't speak to me. So that's what they're saying in terms of trying to avoid airspace infringement. Speak or tune in or use the listening squawk, tune in and monitor the frequency of the controlled airspace that you're nearby. So if you're around Stansted, put in the Stansted one and put the listening squawk in your transponder. That way they know you're listening. And in that way, if you drift in, they can be like, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? Here's a number for you to call. Just joking. Don't know if that's what happens, but yeah, at least they can talk to you and prevent you from making the situation worse. Okay, so that's your airspace infringement update of the week.